everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back to another episode of Spoiler Alert by Fan Service Apparel.
This is episode 16.
Ooh, exciting.
Talking about Hawkeye today.
Yep,
and
exactly.
the latest episode that just came out.
I know, episode 4. Now, I know that this means we're past the halfway point, I believe, because I believe this is only a 6-episode show.
I think so.
But even if it's an 8-episode show,
we're
that's still the halfway point.
We're definitely in the thick of it.
We're in the thick of it, right, exactly. And this was a great episode. I feel like all of the Marvel shows that we've watched so far that have come out, like WandaVision, Loki, feel like we get a really good 4th episode every time.
Yeah, you were saying that yesterday, that by episode 4 it really...
Yeah, that's
really,
kind of the part where you start to really get some more background, see a little more of the stakes.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a twist happening, you know.
You know, I saw somewhere that somebody said that in the 4th episode, at least in Hawkeye, it's where they're kind of moving a lot of the pieces on the board. Mm-hmm. You know, we already have a little bit of information on everybody, but all of a sudden we start changing dynamics and we start changing what we thought we knew of the storyline, which is maybe why the 4th episode tends to be that good one, is because we have a little bit on everybody and we kind of think we know where it's going. Like when she was in the apartment and she's finding the watch, and I remember you even called it the moment she walked in. She's like, "That's a woman's apartment." Remember?
Yes, I did.
And then you were like, "Oh, I know whose apartment that is." And then she's holding the notebook with like Clint's name and his family's name. To me,
I was like looking at this, you know, the set dressing when she walked in, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a female's apartment. There's like art on the walls, there's plants, you know, it's not, and I understand that in the real world, that could be anyone's apartment. But in TV world, where they try to make things very gendered on purpose, it's that I'm like, this is what we're looking at here. And it was like subtle because, you know, it's dark and the camera's shifting around and everything, so you're not really seeing it. But then when I saw all of the plants and I saw the artwork on the wall, I was like, oh yeah, wait, I totally know whose apartment this is. And then the silent alarm, because they didn't know what it was when the light started flashing, but I did. I was like, that's a silent alarm. And I'm like, oh, well, I think I've pieced it all together.
Yeah. Because at first when you said silent alarm, I'm thinking, oh, like a bank alarm. But then I thought, no, it's not silent in the way that it's a secret alarm, because the light is flashing. It's an alarm for somebody that can't hear.
Yes. And it's in the corners, which is where, like, if you were to set up an alarm system in your home, a lot of times they put little sensors in all the corners so that as soon as a door opens, it trips a sensor, or a window opens and there's motion. It trips those sensors, and that's where those lights were in the corners. So pointing right at the front door.
You know, it's interesting. I just realized she shoots like those like goop purple.
She does, yes.
Goop arrows. I wonder if that is going to have some kind of meaning later on, where when they start doing like a breakdown to see like, oh, actually no, she ends up fighting Clint. Never mind. I answered my question. I was gonna say like, oh, she's gonna know that those are Clint's arrows, but they end up having a whole fight. Never mind. I started a theory and then I solved it myself.
It's okay.
Anyways, yeah, but that like shifting of, you know, kind of what we thought was going on. We thought she was going after Ronan, and then that she was kind of chasing this ghost, as Clint put it later in the episode. But the fact that she's written down Clint's family members and stuff means that she might think that there's something there. Maybe he's hiding Ronan or something, you know?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that she thinks it's him.
No.
But, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
But then, also, we find out about Jack Duquesne being the head of this front company that launders money for Trust-a-Bro.
See, and if you listened to our last episode, and if you didn't, you really should. This is furthering my point that he is a bad guy, but I still don't think he's the bad guy.
Yeah, and this furthers my point that the mom is the real bad guy.
Okay, you know, so you started to convince me when we were chatting about it in our last episode, and then watching this episode with that in the back of my head, I'm like, oh man, because there's that moment. She walks him to the elevator, she walks him out, and she's like, oh, my daughter. So you're just going to forget about this whole thing, right? And I'm like...
And then she makes that phone call.
Interesting. And then she makes some mysterious phone call. We don't know who.
We don't know who yet. I don't know.
It's interesting.
But anyways.
But yes, so officially suspish.
Suspish.
Suspish. I'm so sorry. That was terrible.
A fish suspicious.
I'm not. I regret saying it. I'm so sorry.
Suspicious fishes.
No.
Is this like E-turtle?
E-turtles. I forgot about that. That was another previous episode, a few episodes back. Yep, E-turtles.
The E-turtles.
No, so something this I'm also been thinking about. So I love to ask people, any people, what their favorite Avenger is. I think it says a lot about a person. And separate from like, who's your favorite Avenger, you know, there can be a lot of reasons why. So like, who's your favorite Avenger just because like, you love their story, you love to watch them. Okay, who do you think is the most powerful Avenger? Because that answer could be different. And then another question, who is the cutest Avenger? Who's the Avenger that you're like, yep, I'd date them above all else? And so usually for that one, I mean, the popular answer is typically Thor. Most people, I think, say Thor or Cap. Someone I know and love years ago said Hawkeye to me as their cutest. And it makes sense for her that would be her choice. But I was like, I don't see it. I don't get it. But as I'm watching this and he's finally getting more character. He's finally getting to be more like, we're learning more about him, and his acting chops are amazing. I mean, I know he has done other stuff, but Jeremy Renner, I haven't seen him in anything else other than the Avenger movies.
Yeah.
He's a really stellar actor. I'm seeing this, like, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can get it now. I guess I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But like, really, I think that for me, Hawkeye was never here nor there in watching all the movies. Obviously, I just feel like he didn't get his representation as much as the other.
Well, he was a very minor character.
He was.
So it didn't make sense for him to get a lot of...
And it was a part of his character to be kind of like lay low, be like the humble guy compared to all the rest who were boasting about themselves. He kind of was an observer. That's all part of his character, but what that ended up doing was we didn't really find a reason to connect with him. This show is giving us that chance finally, and watching it feels a lot like just watching a Marvel movie that is for him, I think.
Yeah.
But more, it's a show and it's exciting.
You could make the same argument about Loki, you know, that Loki was just somebody. Well, I think Loki had...
I think Loki got more attention and had a little more spice going on.
He was Thor's brother, so like I think just by his placement got more screen time. But I still think that in the show Loki we got a little bit more character exposition than we would have. So because I don't think we
Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's another good one. Falcon, I mean, he was nothing in these movies. We barely any screen time.
He was big in Civil War, I guess, you know. Because
but was he really? I mean, he was in Civil War.
In Civil War, he fought Spider-Man.
Yeah. But we knew nothing about his character.
He was in Ant-Man for a minute. Remember when
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Because I'm sure they went down the roster and they're like, who's the cheapest Avenger we can get for this?
Oh, sad. But you're so right.
And they're not going to get Robert Downey Jr.
to be in one scene
of another movie.
No, of course not. But anyway, I'm glad that we got to see more of his character. Now he is someone I love. Mm-hmm. And so I think, these shows are, you're like, oh, I don't know. Do I care about this character that I'm getting in this show? Like, we don't really know. But then you do.
But I'd argue that these shows are really trying something new. They're not really kind of meant to follow the same playbook that the rest of the Marvel movies had. I know that's why I know with Loki, but more so with WandaVision, there was a lot of fans that of the that had been Marvel fans had a lot to say about those and did not like them, and felt that they were taking a direction that they didn't want to be part of. While I think that Marvel had to kind of like a phoenix, like reinvent itself and kind of start anew, because they were playing the Infinity War saga tune for so long that if they just tried to just push through and keep doing more of that, at a certain point it would become a parody of itself. You can't.
You're right.
You can't just stay on that for that long. So
the easy answer would have been to keep making content for the top 3 most popular characters, because that seems like what you should do.
But even if they, for contractual reasons or stuff, they didn't want to do it anymore and you had to move on, just it would have been easy to just have the same type of formula, the same type of idea that you would see like in the first Avenger movie, or any of them really, where they're big and they're they have a little bit of heart, but they have action and just the regular Marvel movie kind of formula. I think that was it was on the way out, and I think you can kind of see that with Eternals maybe trying to continue that or get one last stab at it, and it's just not working because you're kind of fried by that. You're that big grandiose, like, we just don't want that. We know these people now very well. We've grown up with them. We're ready to do like the character deep dive on them to really start figuring out who these little it's kind of like I feel like it's like we've watched a movie that we've loved over and over again to the point where you can't really watch the movie anymore. So now, or you're not watching it with the same fresh eyes. So maybe you now like watched it for the first time with like the director commentary, and like you're finding stuff in the background of scenes that you didn't know, or things that you thought were one way, but really in the production of it turned out to be a different way. You're like getting a deeper understanding of what you thought was this kind of this finished thing. And I think that we're getting like this other view of the MCU, or we're and I like that. I think it's a great decision to take, and it it lets kind of like it's kind of like Community, where Community was
it all comes back to Community.
There was like this blank slate, and after the paintball episode, you kind of have this kind of
which paintball episode?
The first one.
Okay.
I will say you'll have this like Nexus event, if you will, where they started to really jump into a theme and own it for one episode. And because I would say the baseline show, or the base thing was so plain, the community college, really there was nothing that they couldn't just stick on top and adopt for an episode.
Yeah.
So I like this, this idea that's like, okay, we're done with what we were doing with the cinematic universe and this big old thing. We're gonna like do these character studies, and because we're gonna dive into one in this little, it's still canon, but it's its own little thing. It can be its own thing. This one can be more thinky. This one can be more actiony. This one can be like this like trip through old TV, because that's what works for that. Because you couldn't have done a WandaVision in Winter Soldier, that would have like messed up the pace. You really can't take the time to do that. It has to stay within one kind of theme. But if all we're doing is kind of zeroing in on one person, we can really do whatever theme works for them, or works for the story that we're trying to tell. So that's what's really, I think I like and exciting about a lot of these things is that, we are getting, this is I don't know, this one is, I guess, maybe a little bit more straightforward, but it's still taking so much more time for character development than it would have. And consequently for cost, because the dialogue scenes are cheaper probably than the big actiony scenes ziplining across rooftops and stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of that at play.
Well, there's been an action scene in every episode.
There has been, but I remember, I think it was with like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think when there's like big action, when there's action, I remember in Falcon and the Winter Soldier there was a very clear, it's like, oh, they're on trucks. I remember driving down the highway and they're fighting and they're doing a whole scene, and then there's like, this one is a lot of like dialogue and buildings, and you're like, okay, I can see what episode was used to amortize the budget they had.
Oh, I get you for sure.
Over the other episodes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like at this point, even that like, I don't know, I don't want to say tired trope, but this kind of this idea that you pick up on where you're like, oh, this is a TV show, so there had to be more talking, or there couldn't have been this or that. I kind of like it, because in the Marvel movies, that when they start to get these big budgets, every scene was a huge scene.
Yeah.
So to have these like really tiny moments in the same canon, it almost feels like fan fiction, to be honest. It kind of feels like if somebody...
And you mean that in a good way.
in the way that if somebody loved the content so much, but they felt like they weren't getting what they wanted to see out of the movies, and they would create their own content, which would be, I'm assuming from a fan's point, if a fan is writing fiction about the characters, they wouldn't be like, they fought, they jumped, and they shot. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, they would.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
they would.
Well, then you could see I've never read fan fiction.
Yes, that is clear.
Okay, then let me go back. I would assume that some people would be writing things that had to do more with dialogue, where it's like, I wish that this character and this character had met, and I wanted to see what their conversation would be like, or I wish this character had to deal with this event in life, and how would they have dealt with it? Because I feel like it would, like, think of Age of Ultron, they wouldn't have been like, wow, let's take time to talk about Wanda's grief. No, they wouldn't. But a fan would probably be like, I wonder what that would look like, and it just, if you were in that moment looking forward, it would have felt very fan fiction-y, I think, to say, let's have this like character study about what her grief would look like.
Yeah, Nick has never read fan fiction.
No, I have not.
I hate to break it to you, but fan fiction is not good.
Oh no.
Typically.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's usually just a reason to get two characters to boink.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, internet.
Well, it's really sweet that you had such high hopes for what fan fiction is out there.
I really did. I really thought it was like, as if like writers on a TV show or something, like on their own time, would write like a spec episode on the show that, the network or something would never approve, but it's like...
that's really nice of you to think that that's what's happening. That's
not what's happening.
That's not what's happening.
Oh, okay, well, never mind.
I think you need to read some fan fiction.
I don't think I do, after hearing what goes on during fan fiction. I'm okay, thank you. I'm going to hang on to my incorrect belief that fan fiction is this, beautiful what if
That's why
concept.
when you first said it, I'm like, and you mean that as a compliment, because I could see the sincerity in your face, where typically when you say this is like fan fiction, that is not a compliment.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Is there a term for what fan fiction is supposed to be?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, never
On that
mind.
note.
Never mind, I guess. Anyways, speaking of Hawkeye, in a more tangible thing that I do know of, we have some Hawkeye merch on our store.
That's true.
That is super cool.
It is, and a lot of you guys are already grabbing onto it and picking up your Rogers the Musical shirt or your Trust a Bro shirt.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of people, looks like shopping for other people for Christmas gifts. That's a great idea if you've got a friend who's really into the show.
Big time. So
yes.
check that out, and we're going to have some new stuff for the latest episode coming up pretty soon. Right, Jené?
That's right.
Okay, so keep an eye out for that. You'll probably get an email. If you're not subscribed to our email, you go to our website, fanserviceapparel.com, and sign up for our email list because that's where we send out information on the newest merch drops. And now that, Hawkeye is on, we're going to be putting out some stuff around that. We also have a new Walt Disney World 50th anniversary print that's going to be going up pretty soon that I'm super stoked about.
Yes.
So not talking about Hawkeye, but zoom back on more general Disney. We had a couple 50th anniversary things a couple months ago, and we just got another one in, so that'll be up soon.
It's very retro, very fun.
God, it's so cool, and it's so retro. If you love vintage Disney merch that looks like it was made in that vintage time period, and more importantly, if you dislike current Disney parks merch and just how generic it has become, this is
this is for
you, right up your alley. So Jené,
yes, you said it all. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow, and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.